You know that feeling, right? When the air in the room just, it shifts.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking to a friend or a colleague,
Yeah.
and you ask them a simple question. They smile, they nod, they look you right in the eye and say, I'm fine.
But everything about them is screaming the opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The hair on the back of your neck stands up. Your gut is just screaming, alert, something is wrong here.
That disconnect, it's primal. It's one of the oldest survival mechanisms we have.
It is. But then, almost right away, the second guessing kicks in. You start thinking, am I imagining this? Am I just projecting my own stress onto them?
Right. Did I miss a signal, or am I making it all up?
Yeah. We walk around thinking we're experts at human connection,
Yeah.
but when it gets down to the nonverbal stuff, the silence, the glances, the tension in a jaw,
Yeah.
most of us are really just guessing.
And we're often guessing wrong, which can be dangerous.
Right. And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We've got this fascinating study from Current Psychology. It was just published in 2025. It's called Enhancing Counselors' Competency in Interpreting Nonverbal Cues by Amit Metin and Turkin Dosan.
And this is a heavy hitter of a paper. It really tackles an uncomfortable truth, which is that even the people we pay to understand us, counselors, therapists, they aren't necessarily trained to see what we're not saying.
That was the part that honestly blew my mind. I just assumed body language 101 was like day one of therapy school.
You would think so.
But this deep dive isn't just about therapists, is it?
Not at all. I mean, the study focuses on counselors, yes, because they're the professional listeners. But the mission here, it's universal. It's asking this fundamental question about all of us.
Which
Is reading people some sort of magical intuition you're born with? Is it a talent, like perfect pitch? Or is it a hard skill like coding or accounting that you can actually learn?
Because if it's a skill, that means we can all get better at it.
Exactly. And the stakes are so high. If you misread a cue in a casual chat, it's just awkward. But if you misread a cue in, say, a negotiation or your marriage or a therapy session, you can actually damage the relationship. You might react to anger when the person is really just sad.
Or you might see boredom when they're actually terrified.
Precisely.
So let's get into the weeds here. The researchers identify a pretty significant gap in how professionals are trained. And when I say gap, it sounds like they found a canyon.
It really is a chasm.
Yeah.
Metin and Dosan looked at undergraduate counseling curriculums, specifically in Turkey, where the study originated,
Okay.
and found almost zero direct coursework on observing nonverbal behavior.
It feels, I don't know, negligent. It's like training a mechanic to fix an engine, but never teaching them what a healthy engine sounds like versus a dying one.
It's the assumption of competence.
Right.
We just assume that because we're social animals, because we've been looking at faces since we were babies, that we just get it.
Right here.
But the study points out a really specific high-risk failure, confusing a neutral facial expression with a negative emotion.
Oh, I think everyone listening has done that. You come home, your partner's just washing dishes with a blank face, thinking about, I don't know, the grocery list. And you immediately think, what did I do? Why are they mad at me?
Exactly. We project our own insecurity onto the blank screen of their face. And in a therapy setting, that projection is a disaster. If a client is disconnected from their own emotions, which is super common, and the counselor relies only on words,
They're missing most of the data.
they're missing maybe 80% of the data. The counselor needs to be like the external hard drive that stores and interprets the signals the client can't even process yet.
Okay, but hold on. I've seen the TV shows. I've seen Lie to Me. We know about microexpressions. Paul Ekman's work is famous.
It is.
Hasn't this problem been solved with those training tools, where you spot the fleeting look of disgust? I feel like I've even seen apps for this.
That's a valid point. And the study absolutely acknowledges Ekman's massive contribution. Tools like his microexpressions training tool, they exist. But the researchers here argue those tools have a fatal flaw. They lack something called ecological validity.
Ecological validity. Okay, that's a great term. Let's unpack that.
It basically just means, does this work in the wild?
In real life.
In real life, the traditional training tools are, well, they're sterile. You see a photo of a face against a white background. It's neutral. Then flash, it's angry for a split second. Then it's neutral again. It's clean. It's isolated.
And real life is messy.
Real life is chaos. In the wild, emotions don't wait their turn. The study emphasizes that microexpressions are usually embedded inside other emotions. They talk a lot about the social smile.
The mask. The polite, I'm fine face we all put on.
Precisely. We are conditioned to be polite, so you might be feeling intense shame or anger, but your social programming plasters a smile on your face.
Yeah.
A traditional training tool teaches you to spot anger on a blank canvas. It doesn't teach you to spot a flash of anger that's rippling through a smile.
That's a huge distinction. If I'm looking for a scowl, I'm going to completely miss the anger if it's wrapped up in a grin.
And that's where you get that uncanny valley feeling with people. The mouth is saying happy, but the eyes or the timing or the tension is saying something else. That complexity is what this new program, No Bet, was built to address.
No bet. The Nonverbal Behavior Training Program. It sounds very authoritative. What makes it so different from just, scrolling through flashcards of scary faces?
It's the structure. It's not just a quick test. It's a systematic 3-module approach. It's designed to move from theory to high-level application. They didn't just throw videos at people. They built a real foundation.
Okay, so what's the first step?
Module 1 is theoretical training.
Which sounds a little dry, to be honest. Why can't we just skip to the how to spot a liar part? Why do we need the textbook stuff?
Because you can't spot a deviation if you don't understand the mechanism. You need to know why the face does what it does.
Oh, okay.
So this module covers the neuroscience of emotion. It breaks down eye movements, gaze, vocal prosody, even interpersonal distance, proxemics.
Proxemics. That's how close we stand to each other, right?
Right. And that changes so much depending on culture and context. If you don't know the baseline rules of personal space, you might see someone stepping back as rejection, when really they're just regulating their own anxiety.
So you need the theory to check your own biases.
Exactly. So you aren't just making assumptions based on your own comfort levels.
Fair enough. It's like learning grammar before you try to write a novel.
Yeah.
So what's Module 2?
Module 2 is skills training. This is where they tackle that ecological validity issue we talked about. They use video recordings, not just photos.
So things are in motion.
Right. They train the counselors to watch expressions as they happen, how the voice interacts with the body. It's dynamic. They're training the eye to track multiple data streams at once.
But the part that really caught my eye was Module 3, interpreting and hypothesizing. This feels like the step most people skip. We usually go from observation straight to conclusion.
It is the most critical step. This is where the study brings in a concept they call epistemic probability.
Okay, hold on. Epistemic probability. You're going to have to translate that for the non-academics in the room.
Right. It sounds really academic. But it's actually a safeguard. In our daily lives, we usually operate on subjective probability.
Which is just our gut feeling.
That's just your gut. He looks shifty, so he must be lying. That's a bias. That's you projecting your own feelings onto someone else.
And it's usually wrong.
Usually wrong, or at least it's totally unverified. Epistemic probability means making a prediction based on evidence. It shifts the mindset from, I know what you're feeling, to, I have observed X, Y, and Z behaviors, which suggests you might be feeling this. Now, how do I test that?
So it turns the counselor into a scientist.
Exactly. Module 3 teaches them to write actual hypotheses. I observed a drop in vocal volume and a downward gaze when I mentioned her mother.
Okay.
Hypothesis. This topic is causing shame. Experiment. I will ask a probing question about the mother and observe if the behavior repeats.
That is so much healthier than just assuming. It slows the whole process down. You aren't judging, you're investigating.
It removes the ego. You're not mind reading, you're data collecting. And you hold your conclusion lightly until you have enough proof.
So they built this really robust program, but did it actually work? I mean, I've sat through plenty of corporate trainings where I felt smart for an hour and then forgot everything by lunch.
That is the litmus test, right? They set up a true experimental design, 46 counselors, randomly split. Half got the no-bet training, half the control group didn't.
And they threw the kitchen sink at them for testing.
They did 3 distinct tests. First, the JAXV, that's the classic identify the static photo test. Then the no-Becklat, which tested their theoretical knowledge, the book smarts. But the real beast was the MART,
The momentary emotion recognition test.
which was developed by the researchers themselves. This involves watching video clips where emotions flash for less than a second. It is incredibly difficult.
Wow.
You have to catch the micro expression while the face is moving, often while the person is speaking or doing something else.
It sounds stressful just to take the test. So what were the results?
Across the board, statistically significant improvement in the experimental group. I mean, they crushed the control group. They knew the theory, they could read the photos, and crucially, they could spot those fleeting emotions in the videos.
So they were seeing things the untrained group was just completely blind to.
Completely blind to.
But
Yeah.
you mentioned the forgetting by lunch factor. Did they stick the landing? Did it last?
They did. They went back 2 months later. No refreshers, no practice sessions in between, and they retested them.
Yeah.
The scores held up.
That's impressive. That suggests that once you learn to see, you can't really unsee it. It becomes like a permanent filter on how you view the world.
It really does. It rewires how you process human interaction, but numbers only tell us they got better at taking tests.
Right.
What I loved about this study is that they didn't stop there. They actually sat down and interviewed the participants to find out what changed internally.
The qualitative data, this is my favorite part of the paper too.
Right.
Hearing the voices of the counselors, they're coded K1, K2, K3, it just brought it all to life. It took the data and made it human.
It grounds it. And the biggest theme that came out of those interviews was this idea that context is king.
Which sounds obvious, but I feel like we ignore it all the time. We love a shortcut.
We do. One participant admitted they used to rely on cliches. You know the ones. If they look up and to the right, they're making up a lie.
Oh yeah, if they cross their arms, they're closed off.
Exactly.
I've definitely used that one. I sit with my arms crossed all the time just because it's comfortable, but people think I'm being defensive.
We all have. But the training taught them that those are just isolated data points. Maybe they crossed their arms because they're cold. Maybe they looked up because they're visualizing a memory. The participants learned to establish a baseline first,
Ah, the baseline.
and then look for deviations from that baseline within the context of the conversation.
There was one story that really hit home for me. Participant K3. The story about the adolescent client. Can you walk us through that one? Because it felt like a scene from a movie.
This is the perfect example of that social smile trap we talked about earlier.
Okay.
So, K3 is seeing a young female client. The girl is talking about a flirting situation she's in. On the surface, she's beaming, she looks confident, strong, like she's bragging about it.
Right, she's sitting up straight, voice is clear.
All the signals of confidence. So the subjective probability, I guess the gut feeling would be, she's happy, she's proud, this is a good thing.
And the old K3 would have said, that sounds exciting, and moved on.
Exactly. But the new K3 had the training, and she noticed that while the girl was smiling and acting confident, there were these micro movements of looking down, a specific downward gaze.
And in the no-bet training, looking down isn't just looking away.
In this specific context, combined with the other signals, K3 formed a hypothesis that it was a sign of shame. It was incongruent with the smile.
It didn't matter.
It didn't match. So instead of affirming the confidence, K3 probed the shame. She asked a question that targeted that vulnerability.
And the whole house of cards just fell down.
Right. It turned out the girl wasn't just flirting with anyone. She was flirting with her boyfriend's best friend.
Oof. Yeah, that's a very different story.
A completely different story. The confidence was a mask to protect her ego. The shame was the reality. If K3 hadn't spotted that incongruence, that clash between the smile and the gaze, she would have spent the whole session validating a defense mechanism instead of treating the actual conflict.
She would have just reinforced the mask. Wow. That is the superpower right there. It's hearing the scream inside the whisper.
And it went the other way, too. It wasn't just about reading others. It was about self-analysis. Participant K1 had this really vulnerable moment. She does voiceover work for corporate films on the side.
So a professional talker. Someone who should be in total control of her instrument.
You'd think. And after the training, she listened to a recording of herself reading a script she wasn't fully comfortable with. And she said she could hear the leakage in her own voice, her hesitation, her tone. It didn't match the confidence of the words.
She realized she was giving herself away.
She was. That's almost terrifying, right? The idea that we are constantly broadcasting our insecurities on a frequency we can't even hear ourselves.
It is.
But K1 found it empowering. She realized, if I can hear it, I can manage it. She became aware of her own nonverbal output.
And another one, K2, mentioned arguments.
Yeah, that she stopped getting so defensive in arguments. She started noticing when people around her were speeding up their speech, a sign of dominance or anxiety, even if their words were polite.
Detecting that incongruence again. You're saying nice words, but you're speaking at 1.5 times speed with a really sharp tone.
Exactly. She realized, oh, they aren't actually calm. They're sort of attacking me politely. And instead of reacting to the words, she could react to the behavior. She could step back and say, I can hear that you're stressed, rather than just fighting back.
So let's bring this back to our listener. Most of us are not clinical counselors. We're not analyzing videotapes of our spouses to detect shame. How do we actually use this? What's the takeaway for dinner tonight?
I think the study offers a really clear roadmap for lay people. And it starts with that concept we touched on, hypothesis testing.
So stop jumping to conclusions.
Stop assuming you know. If your partner comes home and is quiet, don't assume they are mad at you. That's just a bias.
Right.
Observe the data. Shoulders are slumped, voice is low, but the facial expression is neutral, not angry.
Hypothesis.
Hmm.
They're exhausted, not angry.
Test it. You seem low energy today. Tough day.
It sounds so simple, but it requires you to override that instant emotional reaction. You actually have to pause.
You do. And you have to remember that you cannot separate the verbal from the nonverbal. The study discusses how different conditions manifest physically. They mention how schizophrenia might present with a flat, monotonous voice, while depression often involves slow speech and long pauses.
Now, obviously, we're not diagnosing our friends with schizophrenia.
So please don't do that. But the principle holds. If your friend, who usually talks a mile a minute, suddenly has long pauses and slow speech, that is a massive data point. That's a deviation from their baseline.
Baseline seems to be the key word here. You can't spot the glitch if you don't know what the software normally looks like.
Precisely. You have to be a student of the people around you. What does their normal look like? Does this person usually make eye contact? If yes, and they suddenly stop, that matters. If they never make eye contact and they stop, it means nothing.
We're looking for the break in the pattern.
We are looking for the incongruence. When the audio doesn't match the video, when the behavior doesn't match the baseline, that is where the truth is hiding. If someone says, "I'm so happy for you," but their voice drops in pitch and their body turns away,
Believe the body.
believe the body.
This has been such a clarifying look at something we usually treat as mystical. You know, we think of people readers as psychics, but Metin and Dosian have really shown that this is just literacy. It's reading, it's grammar.
That's the final verdict. The study concludes that nonverbal competency is a learnable skill that improves the therapeutic alliance. But the participants themselves said it best. Why is this just for us?
I was thinking the same thing. Lawyers, teachers, salespeople, parents.
Think about a teacher noticing a student who says they understand the lesson, but their body language just screams confusion and shame.
Yeah.
Think about a doctor noticing a patient nodding along but showing clear signs of terror. Or a lawyer realizing their client is hiding a key fact, not because of the evidence, but because of a subtle shift in posture.
It's almost weird that we don't teach this.
It is. We spend, 12 to 16 years in school learning to read and write text. We obsess over grammar, vocabulary, sentence structure.
We drill spelling bees into kids.
And yet researchers agree that a massive chunk of our communication, our trust, our safety, our empathy, is nonverbal. And we spend essentially 0 hours learning to read those cues. We just hope people pick it up by osmosis.
So we're sending people out into the world with only half the alphabet.
Worse, we're sending them out blind to the emotional reality of the people around them. Imagine what our relationships would look like if we treated body language literacy as seriously as we treat algebra. If we taught kids not just to listen to the words, but to hear the silence.
That is a provocative thought. Maybe it's time we stop just listening to the words and start reading the silence between them.
The data is all there. You just have to know where to look.
Thanks for taking the deep dive with us. Go out there and observe.
See you next time.